with the voice of the LSU Tigers, Chris Blair from the LSU Sports Radio Network. He took over that job in 2016, starting the 2016 baseball season, then rolled into football and men's basketball as well. He has been behind the microphone for a baseball national championship and a football national championship. Chris, I hope you will allow me one broadcasting question before we dive into this matchup. You good with that?
Oh, sure, Rich. Anything you want.
So LSU's fan base to me is a unique one, and the guy that you followed, Jim Hawthorne, if he got frustrated with what was happening on the field, he never minds saying so. I feel like LSU fans want you to be one of them, but they expect you to tell the truth. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's pretty accurate. I like to tell people that if I'm doing my job right, you can typically turn the game on, and it won't take 30 seconds to figure out if things are going well for the Tigers or they're not. I typically, coming up, I try not to, blame other teams, blame officials. A lot of times it's just, team's not playing very well. And, a lot of times you can do that by, rehashing the fact that they've attempted 22 carries on the ground and have, 25 yards. Without having to get real explicit, you can kind of hammer your point home that way. But, yeah, without question, I think LSU is a fan base that, when things are going well, they want to celebrate with you on the air, and when things are not going well, they want to commiserate. And that's a very accurate assessment.
Chris, this is a fascinating LSU team to me. I don't know that there was a game that was hyped during the offseason more than the Sunday night opener against Florida State, and the game delivered for the first half. Obviously, LSU disappointed in the way that it finished, and then played better for the next couple of weeks, and then just blow the doors off in Starkville 2 weeks ago. What is this team? Is it a team that's still evolving, or are they growing? Do they have an identity that is unquestionable at this point?
I think offensively they have, kind of created their identity, and it's all built around, Jaden Daniels in his second year at the helm, his comfortability. He's kind of an even keel guy. He's got that West Coast vibe, never gets too high, never gets too low. But I think he would admit from a confidence standpoint, relying on the weapons that are around him, he's doing a much better job of this year. So I think from an identity standpoint, I mean, it's a deep receivers room. Daniels has been willing to push the ball down the field. Took maybe 6-7 weeks last year for him to really do that. And again, truth be told, I'm not sure if it was just him not feeling comfortable doing it or based on what's seen at practice, the coaches weren't, calling those type plays. But, we've seen him stretch the field a lot more. And again, it's because he's got guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. and Chris Hilton and Kyron Lacey and Mason Taylor, who, again, is back healthy after missing the Mississippi State game. So I think the identity on offense is there. I think defensively, yes, very much a work in progress, mainly in the secondary. I think that's the biggest question mark, and that wouldn't surprise anybody because last year you had to go to the transfer portal and try to fill that void, and you had to do it again this year. When you take a number of guys that you're relying on out of the transfer portal, yeah, you've seen their film. Yeah, you've done your due diligence. But, when you put them in an SEC matchup under the lights on that stage, you really have no idea how they're going to play. And I think they're getting better, but they're certainly a work in progress. So it's kind of the way LSU, I think, right now, Richard, is a team that, if truth be told, they've got to go outscore people. And, they put it together defensively against Mississippi State. But then last week, Arkansas, again, over 430 yards of offense, 31 points for the second straight week, and they had 11 penalties and came within, getting the ball back with a chance to possibly put it into overtime or win the game. So it's kind of been up or down, hit or miss with the defense, and they'll be challenged again with another dangerous quarterback that can hurt you both on the ground and through the air coming up Saturday evening in Oxford.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, and this may be an observation that's off base. This feels like, or at least through 4 weeks, looks like a team that has the ability to kind of flip the switch on offense, and when they get it going, they can pile points up in a hurry. Now, the good of that is it's always there. You can flip the switch, and you can make things happen in a hurry. The bad of that is sometimes you get yourself in a spot where it's gotten too late. I thought the first half against Arkansas, at least as best I could watch while I was broadcasting another game, was really clunky. And then the second half, it was kind of like that switch flipped. Is that a reasonable observation, or is that off base?
No, I think there's a reasonable observation. Again, I think there's a small sample size to say, is that this team, in fact? The opening game of the season against Florida State, it was an energy issue. I mean, neither team was spectacular in the first half, and you kind of expect that. Week number one, very talented on both sides of the ball. But then in the second half, LSU just had no energy. I mean, they no sense of urgency. And before they knew it, they were down 2 scores and 3 scores. And, truth be told, I don't think Florida State, while I think is one of the better teams in the country, by the way, I don't think they're a 3-touchdown team better than LSU. But they had the energy and they had the sense of urgency. Against Mississippi State, it was, they got them going early. They got off to a quick start. They kept their foot on the pedal and left no doubt in the second half. Against Arkansas, you're exactly right. I mean, it was very clunky. First quarter, it looked like maybe Jaden was too amped up. His passes were kind of off the mark, too much on him, not enough touch. And then he hit Brian Thomas Jr. on the last possession of the second quarter. And then the next 3 possessions, beginning with the start of the third quarter, they were on. So it was almost as if once they hit that, he settled down. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. Suddenly LSU is clicking offensively. Again, they clicked the entire game against Mississippi State on the road at 11 a.m. It's a Saturday night in Death Valley, and it took them a quarter plus to get it going. So, again, I don't know if we have a sample size to say that is this team, but that's certainly it's been different week to week.
And this Saturday in Oxford, we have a late evening kick, a 5 o'clock kick for a game that I think both of these fan bases really look forward to. So Ole Miss have been really good offensively, or pretty good offensively through the first 3 weeks, and then can't do anything against Alabama. Do you get the sense that we are headed perhaps toward a track meet on Saturday night, or maybe something else?
Well, I know this, that, a lot of people who follow Lane Kiffin outside of the SEC, they know him obviously from his time as an OC, most recently at Alabama, where he took an offense that was, run-oriented and then started to air it out. So there's this misnomer that, Ole Miss, since he's been there, is going to throw the ball over the yard. Now they do. They've got a good quarterback who can do it and qualified receivers. But ever since I've seen Lane at Ole Miss, it's a team that spreads you out to run the football.
Yep.
And what's puzzling to me is I literally thought at the end of last year that Judkins was the best running back by far in the SEC. And I'm not saying he's not now. The numbers certainly haven't shown it, only averaging about 3.5 yards per carry. So, that's the only thing. I mean, offensively, they want to run the football. Now, I know he's not going to sit around and wait for it to get started. And eventually he'll just put it in the hands of Jackson Dart and say, go do your thing. But that's the thing that I'm most surprised about. 65 plays per game is a little surprising, although I know they scored early and often against Mercer, so that kind of bends that stat a little bit. But the inability to run the football, to set up the pass in the big pass play, is what's puzzling. Now, do I think they've got an offense to do it? Well, the numbers say they do. LSU's leading the SEC in points per game, and Ole Miss is right behind them. And I think defensively for LSU, you've got the same thing you dealt with last week minus maybe 35 pounds, KJ Jefferson to Jackson Dart. But I think, it's going to be a guessing game for Matt House. Do you want to put pressure on Dart, contain him in the pocket, not allow him to get out on the edge? But the longer that play happens, do you trust your secondary to cover the receivers? Because he can flick it down the field. Or do you play coverage, which, again, allows him to pick and choose what he wants to do, whether he wants to take the ball and run. So I think we'll see a little bit of both. But, against Arkansas, they got home a couple of times and couldn't seal the deal. And KJ was able to slip away and make a couple of huge plays, including a 59-yard touchdown pass to a wide-open Hans down the field. So, I think it's going to be a guessing game for LSU defensively, and they'll have to pick when they want to bring pressure. But when they do, based on what we've seen from the secondary, Richard, they got to get home and they got to get him down. Yeah. Otherwise, they could be in a lot of trouble.
Any chance they just give Harold Perkins the week off?
I doubt it. I think he's going to be.
I just thought I'd ask. I didn't know. Maybe vacation time, PTO built up, something like that.
Yeah, I think number 4 is going to be very integral on those times where they do want to put pressure. I think he's going to have a good game, but obviously Lane and his staff are game planning for number 4, I'm sure, as we speak.
At his coming out party against Ole Miss a year ago, it certainly has been impressive. Chris, thanks so much for your time. Great catching up. Safe travels to you, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely, Richard. Good to talk with you, and see you soon.
Chris Blair.